I should just test it as it is. See if it boots, actually. It'd be amazing, because I've never actually had it where I can do a PC reset and it resets. Yeah, and that makes me think the PC side is crashed. I don't know, it depends how that PC reset's done. You'd think the Amiga side would be doing the reset, but it might not do. It might actually be the custom BIOS, some code on there that's periodically looking at... Hang on a minute, we've got a green screen now. Why have we got a green screen? I don't see any reason for a green screen, to be honest. Must have been a bad connection somewhere, because I'm not getting a green screen now. This is the thing, it's painful. It's been painful working on these. I can't wait for this to be over. I think I actually enjoyed the Amiga 3000 repair more, and that really stressed me out. But I mean, these cards have been, it's like 2 weeks solid on these 2386 cards. Every spare minute I've had. So I'm just listening for that click. See how long it takes for the LED to flash after the click. And it's not booting. Because this is the thing, you get an extended delay on that, and when you get an extended delay on that, you know it hasn't booted. Alright, not really getting anywhere with this. The 2 fixes there, despite the fact those are needed, it hasn't solved it. And this is the thing when you get multiple issues. You know, if you look at the issues with this, I've had to fix 2 things here that were, you could argue, may have been created from removing the chip, but the pins, you know, the solder points around there are solid, so you know what, I don't think so. I think those were just flaky at best. Someone thought they'd fixed everything there and they hadn't. And then it's the same over here. Now this here, I actually wonder if that was a factory fix. It might not be though, because there's a bit of corrosion there. So you know what, I think maybe the battery leaks on this previously, someone fixed it there, it worked for a bit, they hadn't cleaned up round here, something else then broke. But I think there might be another fault with this. I'm going to remove these, because the one thing that's fairly consistent with this, I would say 50% of the time I can get it to boot where it comes up with that recoverable exception. Now we saw that when we removed this RAM on the other board, yeah, just no RAM there, recoverable exception, exactly the same behaviour, which makes me think, I mean, you know, recoverable exception, it could be anything, you're going to get hundreds of different things on here that could cause that, but in general, because we saw it here, I'm thinking communication channel issue. I think that this is used just primarily as a latch here. I mentioned before, an A and B side of it. One side's not connected to anything at all, which makes me think they're just using a latch. This might be how the communication, or one part of communication, passes through. But these sit on the same bus, along with this, I think. So if something round here was going weird, I don't know, there could be a communication issue. These we did test independently, one at a time, in that other socket on the other board, and it didn't cause the system to not boot. So I'm just going to socket these. I mean, we've pretty much socketed everything around here. This has been a lot of guesswork with some proper, you know, educated, like, looking around at things. I put the original 04 back on there, but I actually still think there might be an issue with that, so I might swap that back when we deal with these here to my replacement, because I did see a high and a high on, you know, an input and an output. I mean, maybe I was looking at the wrong pins there, but nevertheless, yeah, get those off next. So chips removed, pads nice and clean, no damage or anything. Gonna get 2 new sockets on. Wish me luck. I don't think this is gonna fix it. I think this is, well, this is just a guess. It's just a guess. We've covered everything else around here, and I mean, right, I could reflow these, but the solder points look fine on them. I honestly don't think this is a solder point thing. I think the end result here is going to be a fail, because I'm just losing the will to live working on this, and I'm out of ideas. This is why I'm now resorting to just sockets and stuff up, in the hope that, I don't know, maybe even though it looks right on the scope, there's some sort of timing thing or something that I just can't see. I mean, this is a kind of educated guess based on behaviour, you know, the recoverable exception. The only time I've seen that tested at the moment is when this RAM's not here. Well, I don't think that's that RAM. I've got some of this RAM now, it's just arrived. That might be next thing. I might just take all that off and put some new RAM on, but you know what? I honestly don't think it's the RAM. There is a possibility it's this, but like, I don't know, it's 10% maybe. I probably said in part 1, but I wish I'd got to these before someone else had, and been able to work on all 5. Because once you've got 1 or 2 fixed, you start to learn some of the issues, and these ones would have been much easier, I think, having some of the boards with more minor issues. Yeah, because then you know the state of your chips and things. All right, I've got one working there, so I think the chips are all right on here. But you know what? With the faults we fixed here and here and here and here, yeah, you start to wonder: did one of these die as a result of testing while it was like that? Yeah, because you get contention issues if buses are enabled and things at the wrong time. Some of these may be dead now. This might be the issue, you know. And this is the thing. And the tests I did earlier, swapping out these things. These could now be an issue. So you can go, to a degree, when you're just swapping things like I'm here, you can go round and round and round. That's why periodically I am going back with the scope and scoping pretty much everything. And also the chips that I have removed, I am periodically, when I start checking connectivity again on the board, the first thing I do is go to the chips that I've just recently swapped and test every single connection around them, just to make sure I haven't introduced some issue by damaging a pad or a trace or something. Anyway, you can see the thing though, the longer you work on it, the more questions you start to give yourself. You start to wonder about things you've done and the implications of things you may have done or things you may have found that are wrong. In an ideal world, we'd have some sort of test BIOS for the PC side on this. You know, it did strike me that you might be able to put a standard 286 BIOS on there and the PC side may just boot. It might work, actually. You might find you got, you know, the ISA slot working in with VGA, and if that works, then at least you know it's something to do with the Amiga side, the control of it, the communication side, etc. But, yeah, I mean, that's a bit risky, because we don't really know how bespoke this is in terms of what this is, how it manipulates the PC side. There could be, you know, you could stick a standard PC BIOS on there and cause some sort of problem. They're really hard to work on as well because the board's on its side, you know, in a slot. So, yeah, I've got like a crick in my neck from leaning into the board to try and see what I'm doing and scope things. I mean, in general, I just don't like fixing Zorro cards. When you've got behaviour that you can link to the logic, you know, it's a different story. But with this, we're totally in the dark. I don't like the way there's no verbosity on the initialisation of it. If I was to develop a product like this, the first thing I would do is think about verbosity on initialisation, so that you've got clues while you're developing it. You've got clues what's going on, and present them in a log somewhere or something like that. Or at least allow, you know, because that might slow things down, enable have some sort of switch or something that you can, a configuration file that can be passed to the library when it tries to initialise it. Then you at least get something. But you see, the thing is, the library, it just fails to load, doesn't it? But is that because it's a badly written library that's not handling issues, exceptions or whatever? Or it's just not being written to be able to anticipate the various types of problems that may occur. Anyway, that looks alright. So I'm just going to get two new 257s and probably find it does exactly the same thing. And it's easy to think, oh, maybe, you know, it's got to be one of these customs, because that's what the original, you know, the guy that looked at these has come to the conclusion. But I'm not so sure, because there's like zero corrosion here. Alright, he may have cleaned it up, but I think that it tends to go this way all around here. This may have just been reflowed. I mean, there could be a missing address line to here. That might be the last thing I check, and you know what, could have been the first thing I should have checked, really. I'm just going to check every connection down there according to PCB Explorer. Right, so here we are booting for about the millionth time. I don't expect anything to have changed, because nothing ever does. Doesn't matter how many things have changed, how many things I find wrong and fix. It's always the same. And that's the other mysterious thing, isn't it? You know, you fix things that are definitely wrong, and the behaviour's the same. So I'm like, well, I don't know. Clearly it's failing somewhere before it's getting to the things where I've fixed things, if you see what I mean. Anyway, let's listen for the click. And there isn't a click, so now it's like even more strange. Now it doesn't click. But we did get a delay there, which means it hasn't booted. Oh, hang on, it's frozen now. It's not doing anything. It's not even complete to boot. Oh, it has. The screen's gone off. Anyway, so this is the thing. It's changed nothing, has it? That has had no effects. None whatsoever. Let's power cycle it again. See, if I had a board that... Oh, I don't know. I was going to say, I almost feel like swapping the bleeding customs around, actually, the Commodore ones. because I've just got this theory it's one of these. I mean, I might try just experimenting with heat again next, just warming things up, and see if I can recreate the problem we had earlier where it did boot and we got VGA and it just froze at the 512k part of the RAM. And I did wonder if that was a clue, like it got up to 512k and then there's some issue beyond that, like maybe address sort of stuff on the PC side. But I don't know what would cause it other than a bad custom. I'd be very surprised if there's any more bad connections on here, to be fair. So I don't know, now it's even worse. Now it's behaving indifferently from fitting those 257s. I'm just going to fit another 257. And of course you do start to wonder about your spares. Like I'm thinking, do these spares really work? The ones I like bought from eBay ages ago. Yeah, what I was going to say is it's always interesting in hindsight, isn't it, looking back at something when you get to the end of it. You know, if we get to the end of it, find it's, I don't know, one of those chips or a bad wire somewhere, and we're like, oh my god, I went on this whole crusade swapping everything, doing this, that and the other. And it's like, I don't know what the point is I'm trying to make. I've just lost it, I think. Yeah, the whole click thing, though, that did disappear before on its own, and then it was back again, and then it almost booted. I do wonder about the 7.4 up here, actually, the flip-flop. Yes, it's not clicking now. Why is it not clicking? Something's definitely changed by swapping those. Don't know, very strange. And then, of course, when you go in here, when you have that delay and you don't hear the click, of course, these things just don't do anything. I'm not even sure how that PC reset works. I actually think when you've not got the library working like that, I don't even think that would do anything. I think you could reset it till the cows come home and it won't work because you've not got communication via the Genesis library. Yeah, so when working on something like this in the way that I've worked on this, it's worth just taking stock. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just re-evaluating. So I'm using the working board now to test each one of the PAL chips here, and I've ticked, you know, and the MCU there. Just wait and see if that boots. Yeah, I think that's booted. Looking at the VGA. Yep, VGA's come on. So we tested that. Those. Just doing that one now, and it's booted with that. So I've got that one to do, and the BIOS. And that, other than, you know, the 7.4 series, that rules out all of the PALs on there. So as a last resort, I'm testing it without chips here. So this is without the 257s. First time we got the resettable or whatever it is, exception thing, the orange one. And then the second time, it's actually booted up. I think the side where the Amiga interfaces with the PC is the issue here. I mean, I'll try and open the window. In fact, the Amiga side's frozen, which is no wonder because it can't communicate with it properly, I don't think, because those 257s aren't there. But nevertheless, this shows that the backbone of the PC side works, I think. Obviously, we've got no keyboard, so I can't do anything else. I didn't hear a beep. Let me power cycle it again. I'm just curious to see, is this kind of repeatable? It's been consistently now with no 257s. That's a huge clue. A huge clue. So whilst the 257s might not be the issue, I'm slurring my speech now, I'm that tired. It's consistently booting. So there you go, well, you've learned something. I would suggest when you get one of these and it's not working to start with, first thing you should do is take the 257s off, because if you take those off, you've got to be able to see if you can boot it. If it boots, then you know which half of the card in general that the problem exists on. I wonder why there's no sound either. I mean, that could be a separate thing. Maybe that buzzer, that PC speaker at the end is not connected properly. Maybe the speaker's got a fault. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that too much. But right now, I don't understand why it's booting. I'm going to try some 257s again. Maybe this is intermittent. The other thing I didn't explain, actually, I just heated around one of the customs for a minute or two, but this was, I don't know, 5-10 minutes ago. I can't see how that's the issue. It's booting consistently every single time. But do you see something else there? 512k base memory. Where's it getting the 512k? It's got a mega there. That might be a clue. I did wonder about that the very first time we saw this issue. That makes me think that one of the address lines used to address that extra, is it 128k, I think it is not connected or faulty. That could be a reason why when the 257s are there, it doesn't work. So actually this here is a clue. Well, I'm onto the right path here, because with the 257s fitted, it doesn't boot again. Let's just remove them again. Yeah, and your knee is not good for ESD. Right now, I've thrown all caution out of the window. I'm just so fed up with this. But I think we've got a clue. If it works again without those 257s, we're into the realms of just trying to understand this circuit here. And we've got this latch here that could be related. And I think one or more of these 244s may have a relation to the circuit here. So you know what, it could just be one of those. It would be ironic, wouldn't it? It'd be ironic, because those are the only two buffers I haven't removed on here. Every single other one has been removed. You may go through that one, honestly I don't know. And again, it could be an address line, maybe. I've tested to here, so I know that's alright, but we could have a missing address line on the RAM, which in turn goes to somewhere here, which means that the CPU cannot address these properly, it can't address this properly. We have that communication issue, that's why we get that exception, and I don't know if that causes it to not boot. It could just be one of the customs having a problem with an address line that goes here, but I would assume the CPU address line goes here. Actually, it might not do. And when the 257s are there, they're not strong enough with the issue that's present, if you see what I mean. If you get a problem with a line where it's been pulled slightly one way, you know, or high or low, you stick something else on that line and then suddenly it's got even more of a problem. If you see what I'm trying to say, you know, you can get problems like that. So anyway, it's not got the chips in again, so let's just see. I'm going to film the LED here without the 257s just to see does it behave normally in terms of when it goes off, then it comes straight back on, or do we get a pause of several seconds? No, it came straight up, that's it, boots straight into Workbench. And then we had a recoverable exception that just disappeared. And that's, as we've shown in part 1, I think, what happens if you've got the RAM missing there. There you go, recoverable alert log. And we've still got 512k again, look. See, I'm racking my brains, and I think the other one, when you get a CMOS messed up, it doesn't default to 512k. That is what it's actually detected. So it can't see the up 128k, that's the issue. And if it can't see the up 128k, it can't communicate properly, I think, with the Amiga side. That's the issue. That is the answer. I'm going to go look at the schematics, I think. So it's amazing how many issues I keep finding here. So I've only got to the 3rd pin on this 257, and I think I've found an issue. Looking on PCB Explorer, it's showing it should come up to this PAL here, and it should be pin 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No join. It also goes up to the left pin on this custom here. Hang on. So it goes there. It's going to that Commodore custom. It's not going to pin 5 on here. And then it should also go to this pin here, pin 3. So it's not going there. If I check from there to there, those are joined. So there's a break between here and there. And this is the thing, there are no clues anywhere. And I know that it's not damage I've done there. There are no clues as to how those aren't joined up. So that's good news, because that means that the Amiga connection on that pin is not just going to the Amiga side of the data bus, it's not going to this logic here either. That could just be the entire answer. It might just be that one trace. So I'm just going to join that up with a wire and then just continue around. But it's a mystery to me how that would happen. Yeah, it's like if you inspect the pads and the traces and things, there's no corrosion at all. I mean, technically, you could think I damaged it here. Now, if I damaged it here, how would it be joined up there? I don't think so. I think there's a few weird faults have developed on these. I don't know how. It's like the other one, and this one here, these 2 wires, we know are from the underside. Maybe from some prior repair that someone else has done at some point. But on the other board, I had to join a wire from here to all the way over there, and there was no explanation for that. No trace damage, nothing. It just mysteriously broken connection. Anyway, I'm quite positive. Every time I find something, it just gives me that little bit more motivation to keep going. A few hours ago, I wanted to just scrap this. Actually, well, I say scrap it. I was just going to give up, which you know is really unusual for me. Well, not just unusual. It never happens, does it? Let's face it, it never happens. If I give up, it's because I've come to the conclusion a specific chip's faulty and I can't find one as a spare. And that's pretty rare. I've got that problem with that LSI 64111 chip on the CD32, but I've got, I think, a solution for that. Stefan kindly sent me a another card, which has got the same chip. Anyway, so I'm just going to tin up this. I mean, I'm half tempted to just try it after doing this. It may just work. It's maybe the only thing. Because the other thing is, it's another Occam's razor, the simplest explanation being the most likely. Well, I found a fault. That's probably it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you had more than one fault, it'd be strange. The chances of that being broken is kind of defying logic, if I'm honest. It doesn't really make any sense. Unless I damaged a trace removing the chip, but... I wouldn't be surprised if this works and then we've still got 512k RAM. That might be the next thing. And there could be a fault with a custom, if I'm completely honest. That 512k thing, I'm not ruling that out. It could also be connections to the zip RAM, because we soldered a few really bad connections around there earlier. Maybe it's something to do with that. So it's joined there, it should be here 4. Oh, sorry, 3. Yeah, 3 on there. So that's that fixed. I'll just continue around and then I'll go test it. Right, really super confused now. With 257s fitted, it seems to be booting. The keyboard control stuff works. I can get into setup. Hang on. Oh, hang on, I've not got the screen on launched on PC mono. Even though there's nothing displayed in mono because we're using VGA. Look, control escape works. And yeah, there's definitely something with the RAM now. I've just looked at all of the address line connections from the RAM to the resistor arrays. The next thing I need to do is trace them through the resistor arrays to the VLSI chip. But you know what? I don't think it's going to reveal anything because I logic probed them all 9 bits. They're all pulsing. Now the chip can't pulse them, so the VLSI is connected to them on all 9 address bits, and here we can only go 512k, look. So that's a bit of a mystery. I don't really quite understand why it's only seeing 512k there. I think I should scope them actually. I might just scope those address bits next. Maybe there is a problem with the VLSI chip on its uppermost address bit. Alright, getting nowhere fast with this. So I added another megabyte, went into the BIOS, so technically it's got 2 megabytes now, so it should have 640k and about 1.3 something meg, 1.376 meg or something like that. Let's just do control delete. And I enabled in the BIOS that RAM, and I was able to change the base memory to 640k. So at the very, hang on, it's not showing it there because it's not a proper reset. But anyway, at the very least, I can show you the BIOS. Let's just do that. Control escape. There you go, 640k. So at the very least, it's up and running. What I don't know, or I don't understand, is why is it now super reliable? Like it boots up every single time. After my crusade of trying to work out what was going on with this 257s, I just fitted this 257s again, switched it on, and it just works. And this is the thing. So now I'm left wondering, how is it working? Did someone completely finally died? Which is why it now just boots every time with 512k instead of 640k. The address lines are alright there. The CAS lines are okay there. Maybe I should check the RAS lines. I know that the sims are going to be used in blocks of 4, because if you have 2 in there, it beeps. Yeah, it doesn't matter which bank of 2 you have. A bank of 4. If you put 2 in the first half, it beeps a number of times to indicate there's no RAM, and it's just the same if you swap the RAM into the other half of that bank. But with obviously 2 meg in, it's jumped up to 1 meg. Originally it said there was half a meg. Now it says there's 1 meg. Therefore we can install therefore we can upgrade the base memory. So I just don't get why it's half the amount it should be. The only other thing I haven't checked maybe is like the write enable on the RAM. Maybe that bank, one half of that bank's missing a write enable or something. It's strange though, because we're back to the, if you test it in pairs, like 2 chips at once, it then doesn't work. Yeah, it beeps, which suggests it needs the full. Yeah, that makes sense. It's 16-bit. 16-bit. These RAM chips are 4-bit. The 386SX has a 16-bit data bus, I think. I think the full 386, 386DX has got a 32-bit data bus. So I don't know, the plot thickens. It can't be missing data bits, yeah? Otherwise it wouldn't work at all. So it has to be RAS, CAS. Oh, that's it. That's all I can think of. RAS or CAS. Oh, I guess I should check RAS. I've not checked that. Right, I removed the VGA card and changed all the settings and stuff to a PC mono. Got the Janus handler loading as well, so well, let's just try that now. It should come up with the handler stuff, if that's working. Yeah, there we go. And then it should boot from a hard disk, the virtual one that is, on the compact flash card that we set up ages ago in part 1. Yeah, it's not the slowest at booting. You do get that pause there. Pauses more than I do. What I want to do is run the memory test on the video RAM, because what we proved is on the other one, when everything was working at the end, the memory test works okay. I've tested the system memory, there's no issues there, but we still got 512k when we got 1 meg of zip RAM installed, which is really weird. So tests, video RAM. I'm just curious to see. There we go, so that's alright. Oh, I pressed the wrong key there. So, I mean, everything there looks alright, doesn't it? Apart from the 512k. As far as I can see, that's the only outstanding issue with this board now. You see, what I'm thinking is the issue all along with this, well, I think the 257s were balked, but I think beyond that, I think there was this problem with the additional 128k there that it was having problems with. The other thing that should work as well is we should be able to change that to PC colour. Let's just come out of that. And again, the memory test should complete on that. So we'll change it from monochrome to colour, default colour, disabled, enabled, save, OK, reset, and then if we just leave it a few seconds to do PC colour, there we go. And then I think, all being well, hang on, oh, we've got to go into the BIOS and we control escape, colour 80, end. Yeah, and then if we uncheck it again, it should actually come up in colour, I think. So, I mean, the last few tests here just showing that, for me, everything is working, apart from, we've got 512k, so 64k. You know what? It's not the end of the world, is it? I'd be honest, I'd be tempted to go and buy this off him and upgrade the RAM to the max, in other words, fit 4 meg of RAM on here and end up with 2 meg. You see what I mean? It halves, doesn't it? I don't know if you can fit more than that on these. Someone on Discord was saying you can do a 16 meg mod to these or something, but I'd be interested to see what's involved in that. Anyway, let's check it again. I don't think I need to reboot to get the colour stuff, CGA. I think it should just work as, there you go, it's coming up in colour, look. So I'll test the video RAM again. And the reason we're testing the video RAM setting time is when you test black and white, you know, monochrome, it's 4K. When you test in colour, I think it's 64K, is it, or 16K? Yeah, 16K, 16,384 bytes. It's in yellow, it's awful, I can't see it. Bytes tested past. Yeah, then it's doing the different video page things here. It's going through different pages of RAM with text, I think. 4 video pages tested. Yeah, so I don't know, I'm sort of pleasantly surprised at the end of the day, but at the same time is disappointed and at the same time is confused because I don't really know why it just suddenly started being really robust. So I'm trying to make sense of the memory issue on this. I've tested all the connectivity, can't find a connection problem anywhere, you know, between the CPU in here and its address lines, which there are many, and then from the you've got multiplex address lines from here to the memory. Again, it's all okay. The connection between the RAM is okay. The CAS and the RAS are okay. The CAS and the RAS all connect here correctly. It just doesn't make any sense. It's either a fault internal to this, or I don't know, something else I'm not really seeing here. So anyway, following the data sheet inspection I did, one of the things it said is if you pull MA9 low on power on, it changes the capacitance of the drive of the pin there. So I tried that. It wouldn't boot actually when on MA8, just with the 10k pulled down. So yeah, I'm just experimenting, going all the way down each of the address, you know, the multiplex address lines here with a resistor, just to see. In fact, that didn't even boot. just to see if we get 640k, get the 1 meg, because that's the thing, it's showing 512k out of every meg you fit. Yeah, it's a 50% thing going on here. Yeah, so I started with MA9, that didn't do anything. Then I moved on to MA8, and that's what it wouldn't boot. And then I've gone, I don't know, 4 or 5, or 2 or 3 pins down. I'm just working my way down all of the multiplex address lines. A pull up or pull down on the multiplex address lines on the RAM there made no difference at all. I reflowed another 1 or 2 solder points around there. Some of those look better, let's say. Yeah, it's still a state, this, isn't it? We need a lot tidying up here. The wires need shortening and tidying and routing and all that sort of stuff. Hang on, what's that? Oh, hang on, one of the wires has come off. Oh, that's not good. You've got to be careful, you've got long wires like this, you don't get pierced by the pins and stuff, because, yeah, that can be a thing. But anyway, in the meantime, I've just got some flux around this chip here, and I'm just going to reflow that. I mean, the connections, you can see them, they come down to these test pads here, and then from there to there, and everything's good, but these are the address lines from the CPU. I just want to rule them out, and then what I may do is, I'm trying to think where the MA, the multiplex ones come from now. The multiplex ones might be up there as well, actually, or they might be on one side or the other, I don't know. Anyway, I just need to just do that stuff to rule it out, really. Right, so I reflowed that side of that chip there. Looking pretty good. I also spotted a couple of bad, well, not only bad, but just like crusty solder points around the ROM there. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can be able to see, but yeah, they just look like partially cracked around 2 or 3 pins there, so I'm just going to flow just the spot pins around that. Now, interestingly, we're not out of the woods with this, because doing a video RAM test with the VGA card, we're getting some issues. The issue there was in PC Prefs, it had colour mode enabled, so you got 2 graphics cards effectively, and I think that was causing the issue, because I noticed the colour back when I reset this then on the Trident, the BIOS, VGA BIOS there. So let's just try that again now and see what happens. Yeah, it is, it's working. There you go. So you've got to be careful about whether you've got the the mono, the MGA adapter enabled, or the colour graphics adapter, because the two will clash if you're not careful. Strange how there's no colour in here though, isn't it? Oh, there we go. I'm not sure why it defaulted to colour bin off. Well, we could test the memory again, but yeah, I've done this an infinite amount of times, and all 512k checks out alright. I think the cause of that has to be the custom, the memory controller there. If it was an address line problem in general with the CPU side of things, when I add another 1 meg to give us 2 megabytes, it then wouldn't allow 640k out of the 1 meg that's available, if that makes sense, and I'm confusing things. When you add when you've got 2 meg in total, it sees 1 meg, and then I have 640k of base memory and 384k of extended memory. So yeah, I think the CPU side of it works, and I've ruled out everything there to do the zip RAM, the connectivity on the address lines, the data bus, the multiplex address bus. It can only be that custom, I think. I mean, there's a small chance that a control signal is missing somewhere that relates to, I don't know, 16-bit transfers or something like that, and it's, I don't know, somehow it's falling back into some of the mode where it can only see half the amount of RAM that way. I don't know. Right, so I've tested connectivity to infinity here. Just for good measure, I have reflowed around the other 3 sides of that memory controller chip there. I mean, it isn't just memory control, but that's one of the main functions it provides. So I'll toothbrush around that in a sec, just to make sure you got all this flux away. I also toothbrush around the resistor arrays here, which are used to attenuate, the signals that go to and from the memory. I measured all those resistor arrays as well. Every one of them is spot on, so there's no other cause here, I think, other than this IC. It has to be this IC. It's something internal. Trying to find one of those is pretty hard, although I think Stefan may have found a couple. So So you never know, I might actually swap that out before the end of this video, but I don't know. It's like, say, if I was going to buy this, if there's an option to buy one, I'll buy this, and then I'm not going to do it, because I don't see the point. I mean, you know, the extra 2 meg up from 4 meg, you know, you're not really going to use this machine for much, really. You're not going to be able to play Doom on it, that's for sure. I mean, you could if you upgrade the CPU to one of the overclocked 386s, you know, like the Cyrix one. Stefan did say he might be able to send one of those at some point, which, yeah, that might be cool. But, yeah, I just want to get these boards out of the way and back to him, I think. Right, let's see that make no effect. So, like you may have already seen in the A2386 video, I've got some of these here. I'll stick the size, top left, came from AliExpress. That pin there doesn't look so clever. Yeah, that needs pulling through. Yeah, it's always worth inspecting things like this before you fit them. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that pin there is protruding a little bit. It just needs a gentle pull this way. And then just inspect. Yeah, it's back in its channel now. Anyway, that can go on. Yeah, do exactly the same as I did on my Rev 6 board. The difference on this Rev 4 board is the holes need unblocking. That's annoying. So it's had a few modifications to this board. It's had the DTAC mod there, 470 ohm resistor on the DTAC line, and is it VPA? I think it is. And then we've got a resistor there. Forget what that's for, that's one of the Commodore recommended mods. And then we've got 2 resistor arrays here. These resistor arrays were not big enough for the data bus buffers here, which is why there's one additional one on the final data bit over there. And of course it's got the modular VSync tick mod on the other side that just plugs into the 3-pin header for the tick signal, and we added a capacitor here onto one of the video slot clock lines to tidy up Syndicate, I think it was, and various other things where there was like scan line things going on, like noise and artifacts and stuff. That solved that. Yeah, and obviously this board has featured a lot on my channel. It was the first 2000 I think I fixed. So it also had a RAM fault, which we did later, the original corrosion repair. We had problems with the controller ports. I upgraded the Agnes for A2387A. Yeah, it's featured quite a few times, this board. Anyway, it's been a rock solid workhorse board, this. In some ways more reliable than the Rev 6, which may come as a surprise to you. You think the Rev 6 would be more reliable. It could just be that the Rev 6 had a harder life before it got to me, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so in order to do this I'm just going to simply add a little bit of solder to each of these here. Right, so the next tip I've got for you, if you find you got loss of suction, a not so obvious cause for loss of suction on mine, and it's happened a number of times, are these screws with thermal cycles. They just cut down from wobbling, putting pressure on it as you press down, which you shouldn't really press too hard because you'll remove too much of the solder mask and stuff. Yeah, those come loose. And when those come loose, you lose suction, you lose heat. It's amazing what a difference it makes. It's like night and day when you've tightened those up. That's looking pretty clean there. So we'll start with the inner one. Yeah, what I've started to do with these now actually is get a cardan. It may seem weird, but if you get a cardan, yeah, then you know it's going to be totally straight in relation to the other slot. Now obviously you've got to overhang a little bit like that in order to do that. And then what we'll do is take the card out and just make sure it is nice and straight. So we'll solder one point there, and we won't do that ground, we'll do one. And I've said this before, if you've got a ground and you want to anchor it, don't anchor the ground, because then it's hard to move it, it's hard to remove it if you need to. So yeah, anchor on pins that you know you're going to be able to just gently heat, and you just save yourself some effort. Now you could inspect obviously there to make sure they're straight. You could argue that by pulling this out like this now, there you go, you could move its alignment, but I think you'll agree that's pretty straight now. So I'll just commit to soldering the, yeah, and obviously inspect it in all orientations there. better than factory. Look at that, you wouldn't even be able to tell I've done that probably, unless you looked really closely at the size of the solder points there. Woohoo! We now have 4 16-bit ISA slots. Just makes it a bit easier for testing, because when I've got, you've only got these 2 slots here to choose from for the Bridgeboard, and then the VGA card inevitably, has to be in this slot. Unless you try to put the VGA there, then it can tilt this way. It just means I can have the VGA slot there and the Bridgeboard here while I'm probing things and stuff, just trying to work out this RAM issue. I don't think I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I think it is a custom that's faulty, but nevertheless, that will, something that needed to be done. I've done it to my other board. Both boards now have got 4 16-bit slots. Right, ironically, the power on self-test card arrived. Just testing that on its own, that's a good thing to do on something like this, because there's nothing else on the actual bus there. In order to get the voltage, the displays and things right there, these LEDs. So we've definitely got the right way around. It does say rear, but then you start to think, did they get it around the wrong way when they designed it? So anyway, that's right. If we now plug this into the other slot, I'm just interested to see what happens in terms of power on self-test there. It's quite a nice little test card, that, and it also works with PCI. It's got a second edge to it there. You can rotate a stick into a PCI slot. So let's try that. Until we hear a click, obviously this is not booted, so it's not going to do anything just yet. But at the relevant point in the boot, when the Amiga initiates the Janus stuff, it should do something. Of course, it's not really going to help me resolve anything really now. It's just useful just to see, well, does it work? And I'm just curious to see what happens with the stuff here. There we go. 27, 25, and various codes there. I've got no idea what any of those mean. What's 38 mean? 0038. Initialising the bus, IPL generation, I think. Now, bear in mind, it's not got a battery at the moment, so it's just failed the CMOS settings, I think. Yeah, initialising the bus input, IPL general, devices next, if present. I mean, that's assuming I'm looking at the right thing here. Alright, I'm just going to do PC reset. Yeah, so you could see like the same sort of sequence of events there. And I'm going to bring up the terminal window so that I can change some settings. So I'll Control Escape, see what happens. So it's not changed that code there yet. And I'm just going to change the display to colour 80. And let's just see what happens now as it boots up sort of normally. So this is the point where it will start to look for the floppy drive and the hard disk. So that's booting. Janus handler and Janus library loaded. I bet it stays on 38 even after it's booted. Yeah, it's booting from hard disk now. So yeah, that's that's what these sort of show when they've booted up. It's amazing how fast it is from the virtual hard disk actually. I'd heard bad things about it, but I think when you've got something like a A2386 where you're getting about almost 5 megasecond, you don't notice any problems at all. It's really cool. Yeah, I have managed to get myself confused with the memory. The memory on this other card, it's got 4 chips there and it's shown 2 meg. And I'm like, 2 meg? How's that possible? And I just zoomed in with magnification. It's a different part number. So this is 2 meg, even though there's only 4 chips. But nevertheless, when all of that memory was on this card, it was showing twice as much. So anyway, what I'm trying to do at the moment is install Wolfenstein, and failing miserably. I'll go back to my main modern PC, use the USB floppy drive to copy the files across again. So just finishing off that first card, we've got a few bits of corrosion here that need to be dealt with. These may have been covered with solder mask paint by the previous repairer, but I'm honestly not sure. The first thing we're going to do though is just clean around this area of the board here. Just give it a good brush actually, just completely brush it down, and then I'll replace that wire with something a bit shorter. And yeah, you just set with UV like this. It does take maybe 5 minutes. If you heat with hot air as well, about 150 to 200 degrees, it dries really quick. But I found the best way to apply this is to literally set up some sort of little clamp or something, you know, something where you can leave the thing like this just hanging there. It's not going to sit there, is it? Probably it would be better that way. It sounds crazy, but depending on which way, there you go, it sits on the bench, depends on which way it falls. There must be a slant or something. Yeah, I could just leave that now for 5 minutes, and then I'll just heat it with hot air, and that should set nicely. Yeah, so just trying to remove the battery contacts here. What I don't understand is, when all the work was done around here, why were these not unblocked at that point? It just seems a little bit crazy to me to leave the battery contacts still in there, because those have actually added to corrosion. There's corrosion around all three of them, which may have been, you know, treated at the time. I can see the fiberglass brush was used, but nevertheless, it's started up around those 3 pins because they weren't removed, and there's corrosion just around them that wasn't really dealt with. So yeah, my advice is, when you're removing all the stuff to work on a board like this, remove those 3 contacts and clean them up. I've cleaned these 2 here. Yeah, no issues there. This one though is proven near impossible to desolder, and of course because these have been relocated here, you know, this is like right next to it. Yeah, anyway, I'm having to try and scratch the surface of the solder, because solder is not having any effect, you know, the flux and the solder. Heat is not passing into it, so corroded. I'm going to add some dedicated flux here. So you can see it's a wee bit cleaner there. Right, so I can show you the charge circuit in a minute. Because of the way things are wired on the board, the positive goes through an internal layer to one of the diodes on there, and it's the one that comes from the VCC rail. So you don't want that. You want it to go through a diode like this, a 0.125 forward switching, you know, a low voltage drop diode, you know, from the positive of the battery into the anode, the cathode going to that point. You could lift the diode that connects straight to the positive terminal on the battery, but then you need to join with a wire or something. It's just going to look a mess, I think, and be a bit fiddly. So I think rather than interfere with the existing circuit that's on the board, and the other option is to buy one of those adapters that's got a little PCB. They're ridiculous prices. They're like, I was looking on eBay, there's one in Poland at like €8 or something, with like €3 or €4 shipping, which is crazy, because these cost pennies and those cost pennies, and I don't understand the pricing on some of these things. Right, so I removed that first diode entirely. I've fitted my little Schottky pointing upwards there, cathode at the top. Going to fit a brand new 4148 across here upwards towards it, yeah, and then I just need a wire from that same point to the end of this diode here, I think, and then I'll push it flat, heat shrink it, and then it'll sort of still be revertible. Well, you might need to fit a brand new one and 4148 or 2, but it should look pretty tidy, I think. So anyway, I'll show you the end result in a minute. Today's been an absolute disaster. I started off this morning with the hard disk that wiped itself seemingly, so it's been restoring all day. In the meantime, I was doing that battery testing on this board, and this battery is just gradually going down really slowly. I'm not sure if it's because it's charging a capacitor or whether there's some issue there. Anyway, I was then testing this card with that, everything working fine, but in DOS, text was like doubled up. There was like a weird, and missing characters. There was weird stuff going on. So of course I thought, well, let's just rule it out. I reseated everything, same problem. I thought there must be a fault, so I swapped over to the other board. This one was not booting again. Janus library failed to load. Now that wire came off before, didn't there? Were 2 of them, and I measured it was all right. So I thought maybe it's that wire. So I spent about 20 minutes trying to get that wire back on. And then once I got that wire back on, it booted again. Same problem with this card. So I'm like, oh, it must be the VGA card. Now, I tested a dodgy sound card yesterday. I wondered if that had killed it. Anyway, I took the VGA card out, reset it a few times, pressed all the chips down, couldn't seem to fix the issue. So I just heated it, hot air, 400 degrees with the hot air, all around the main chip on that VGA chip there, and it's fixed. So the VGA card had an issue as well. I'm sure I didn't show you the actual behaviour, but anything you did in DOS here, there was like occasionally an extra line of the same thing with some of the letters missing, which is just really weird. Anyway, and it was causing it to freeze loading things, so let's just try check it. Yeah, that's working again. Thank God for that. Right, so the following day, we're on to week 3. It's incredible how long I've been working on these. So yeah, progress update, you can see some UV solder mask paint there. It looks alright. Solder points may be a bit covered there, but you could scratch the coating off. So we've got those 3 bits covered. There's obviously a few bits here, so I'll get some more on there, on here, because it's scuffed up and stuff here. And then I'll secure this wire down with some hot melt glue. And I've done that on this side. You can see here, I shortened this wire, and then, yeah, hot melt glue there, 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 under the ROM. Yeah, here as it comes out of the ROM, here, and then just down towards the pin there. It's the same there, it goes, you know, sort of downwards. It just makes it tidy, I guess. I did look at the layout, and the problem is, I think, it's probably damaged under here, yeah? And it's one of these vias, so it's one of these vias. So what else could you do? We could go from via here to over here, but then you need to remove this label because it's under here somewhere. I don't want to do that. I may just get a little bit of glue on there, actually, just to stick that edge back down. But it's proven, I think Armin may have tried to peel off earlier, actually, trying to work out the cause of the issue. We've still got this socket on here, but I'm going to leave this on because I think this is the board I'm going to keep. And obviously I've done the battery mod now. I just need to measure that, actually. It's been on overnight. Let's just see how much it's dropped. I'm hoping not too much. Because as I sort of explained when I was testing, I saw it going down, 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 but by not very much. It was like 1 millivolt at a time or something. But anyway, let's just see what it is overnight. Yeah, 2.688. That's actually dropped a fair bit. So I might need to, well, I do need to do something with the circuit there, because that was 3 volts, yeah, and now it's not. Now it's 2.689 volts. It could just be that 3 volts really isn't, you know, the capacity of this is not really enough to power, and it's this chip here that contains the real-time clock, by the way. You've got the crystal for it there. Or is it this chip? No, I think it's that one. Oh, hang on, might be that one. Yeah, I think it's this one. I think it's on this side, maybe. Yeah, so that is not quite right as things stand. 2.7 volts-ish. I'm darn sure when I checked this yesterday it was 2.8 volts, maybe 2.82. So, I don't know, the way that's going, it's probably going to be lucky if we get a month out of that battery. The other thought I did have is it could fit one of these adapters instead. You know, you could stick this somewhere, maybe across the chips there or on that or something. Because this holds 2, yeah, and I think they're in series. So you have more than 3 volts, yeah. It'd be like 6 volts, wouldn't it, roughly? And the original one that was on there was probably 6 point something volts. I can't be 100% sure, was it 6.8 volts or something like that? No idea, because I haven't got the original battery, obviously. Yeah, but anyway, we'll do the battery mod to the other one and just see if the two behave the same way, and then I might need to just re-evaluate, actually. I think before I do the mod to the other one, I'll just re-evaluate the charge circuit there and just see if I've done anything wrong that could mean it's drawing more power than I'm expecting. But anyway, this board has come along really nicely. It's mostly done, this one now. I just need to clean around that socket, and if I keep this, I'm just going to leave that 2 strips of turn pin on there, because I've got a load of RAM. I'll show you. This arrived, and which we don't need now, but it's handy to have some of that spare, because zip RAM is well, hard to find. So we've got UV solder mask paint over everything I'm concerned about there. 2 bits of hot melt glue to secure that wire. I could have straightened it and made it shorter, but I wanted to route it in between the pins and stuff so it doesn't get pressed into a pin. And then this board is pretty much done. The only thing we're missing is a replacement pico fuse, so for the moment it's got that bit of wire there. I have ordered some 4.5 amp pico fuses. It's got some 1.5s and some 2.5s, I think. They're a bit bigger actually physically, so it may sort of stick out a little bit. I'll just have to see what I can do in terms of routing the replacement. Yeah, but in general, I'm very happy with that board. And because this is the one I'm going to keep, I actually have some of these spare chips actually myself, so I'm going to bump this up to 2 meg. As things stand, that's 1 meg. 4 of these 512k, that's 1 meg. So if I fit another 4, we'll have 2 meg. And then when I've got some more money in a month or two, I'll order a full set here of the ones that will give me 8 meg. Yeah, they're 4 megabits, 4-bit each. But it's going to be expensive. It's going to be like 80 to 100 pounds, I think, to fit 8 meg there. And obviously I need to pay Stefan for this first, so it's not exactly a high priority to get it to 8 meg. You can upgrade these to 16 meg. It's complex, but it's simple. What I mean is, well, I think you need a custom BIOS first of all, because the BIOS is not looking for any more than 8 meg. But there's a modification out there to the BIOS that you could do yourself and then just program up a new BIOS. But beyond that, you also need, you know, I talked about when I was trying to diagnose what the issues on one of these cards, I think it was the other one actually, the issue with the RAM. In fact, it was this one. It was this one. It was showing half the amount of RAM or something. And it wasn't showing half the amount of RAM, it was these that were the issue. But when I was testing connectivity here, between I think this chip, between the CPU and here and the multiplex address lines there, well, the multiplex address lines, it goes up to MA9 on here. You haven't got MA10, but you do have MA10 on here. It's that simple. You need to add a wire from MA10 somewhere down here, I think it is, to somewhere on your additional RAM. Now this is the thing, there's nowhere on here to add MA10 because all of the pins are used by this footprint of chip. Yeah, but what other people have done is develop or design, I don't think there's anything open source out there, if there is please post in the comments down below, an adapter that goes from zip here to a SIM, because then you can put a 16 meg SIM on, and where that address bit goes on the SIM, you can join to MA10 here, and then with your custom BIOS you can then address 16 megabytes. The other thing you can do, and I might do this as well, I might do this myself, is you can replace the 386SX here. This one's a 25, and incidentally these came in different flavours. I think they came in a 16 megahertz version initially, and a 20 megahertz version, and a 25, and both these boards I think are 25s. So you could obviously replace that chip with a 25 if yours is slower. You'd probably need to, well, you would need to change the crystal down here. I think it's divided by 2, so 50 megahertz there, divided by 2 gives us 25. So if you had a 16, you'll probably find you've got a 32 megahertz crystal here. And of course you could overclock it. If you've got a 16, you could probably get away with running that at 18 or maybe even 20, just by putting a 40 megahertz crystal here to give you 20. But you can replace that with a Cyrix chip. Now Texas Instruments took over the manufacturing of those. In fact, they may have manufactured them to start with for Cyrix, but they produced their own, didn't they? And IBM had some involvement as well, and there's a few different versions of them. And I think the IBM one, which was a 486 SLC2 was it or something, that one can run I think at 50 megahertz or beyond internally. Yeah, and it's got a bit of cache as well, I think, and that one runs really well. Now, it won't, even though it says it's a 486 part, it won't give you 486 performance really, but what it does is it boosts it right up to the top end of a 386, like a 386 SX50 or so, maybe even a 386 DX25 if you get the one with the cache. But bear in mind, a DX has got a full 32-bit data bus, this has only got 16, so you've got a bottleneck on your data bus side of things there. And obviously you've got a bottleneck on a card like this in general because of the ISA side. That's this side, isn't it? Yeah, the ISA side, you know, it's bottlenecked based on clock speeds and clock divisions and things. It's 8 megahertz on these, I think it may be. But you could always overclock the ISA bus, but then it depends on whether your customs can support that stuff and the logic and stuff. And things may die if you overclock, so overclocking, I would say, is not a good thing on a card like this. But what might be a good thing, if you can safely, cleanly remove the CPU and fit one of those faster spec CPUs on there. And likewise, if you can get an adapter here for a SIM or something, then doing the memory upgrade to 16 meg, it's not so destructive, is it? It's quite a simple thing to do. Yeah, and I've got my 256K/4 on there. You know what, I'm thinking I'm not going to bother sticking that on there for the moment. It's going to work fine with just the 1 meg there, just for testing purposes. I could fit that, I know that all works. We tested it on the A2630 video when I upgraded that to 4 meg. But I don't see the point in fitting it. It'll just be something I fit and then remove, etc. I'm not sure if I pointed out already, but when you come to remove this, get one of these. Yeah, this zip ram, it's pretty easy to remove with one of those. If you just hook it on the underside of the plastic body like that, and then carefully, hang on, so I can demonstrate this without mangling it, carefully just sort of rock one way and then the other, and then the other, oh hang on, slipped off, and then just rock one way and then the other. There you go, they come out straight, perfectly straight. All the pins are straight. That one there's just a bit bent, but it may have gone in a bit bent. Yeah, inspect with magnification before you attempt to push these in as well, and straighten them out if they need it. Anyway, let's get that one back in. Yeah, and then getting them in is just a case of aligning one side and use magnification to do this. Yeah, that's it. And yeah, when you've got, you know, each leg at each hole, and you'll know when you've got it in there because it feels like it wants to slide in rather than feeling resistance. And actually this pin here, it's not, there we go, quite in. So just inspect with magnification before you commit to just gently push down, and again push on one side and on the other. Each side oppose each other, you know, like one like that. Yeah, until it goes straight in. And then just inspect with magnification before you stick the next one in. You know, and sort of look down like that to check the end pins, and then look side on if you can. Yeah, they're pretty hard to deal with, these blooming things. And if I didn't already explain, when I soldered the 1 or 2 points on the other board, actually, these pins can move around. They just go all crazy. You've got to be very careful when you're reflowing these. I would suggest the best way to reflow them if you get a bad solder joint is either get a strip of turn pin, yeah, into each one there, or actually fit the ram. Yeah, make sure the ram is nice and straight, and then just gently heat the pin with a bit of flux. Don't press whatever you do, because they move around. Yeah, and then you'll have problems from there on in trying to get memory in and out of it. But anyway, the 1 or 2 that I heated on the other one that went crooked, I managed to re-straighten them. So what I did is I put this tool here and heated with hot air gently. And as soon as it got to temperature, me pushing, actually I felt it go into the hole and straighten. And it stayed straight, and I held it straight, waited for it to cool, and then released, and then just checked down the line, and they were all straight. So yeah, just be warned that because these are separate pins, that's really easy to create a problem for yourself. So I mean, technically, you know, there's a bit of a bent pin there, isn't there? It's kind of doesn't sit where all the other ones are. I might just try and straighten that out with a pin if I can. Right, so that pin, I managed to pull it up a little bit to put it in line with the other ones. I'm now just going to add a little bit of solder here. I've just tested connectivity. It's the pin I'm about to add a bit of solder and flux to. Just because if we heat it, hang on, yeah, so I've got a bit of solder on there. If we heat it and yeah, then press it down, it will then sort of sink back a little bit into the socket in line with the other ones. Yeah, that's a bit more in line. I'll just have another go. And before I forget, whilst these sockets have now got the base sat under the chip there, I need to just carefully, and I do mean carefully, just prise the chip out. It's easier said than done, because the surface mounted ones, you know, like the surface, there we go, on the pads, yeah, they don't go very deep. You need probably a specialist removal tool to get those out. I have a PLCC extractor, but there's no way it can get in there. It doesn't help that the speaker's right in the way either. There we go. So I've got the chip out. I will just inspect the solder points there just to make sure I haven't adversely affected anything. Yeah, the legs on that probably need tinning up, so you know what I think I will do? You know, the coppery, can you see that? Yeah, they're being like over cleaned. I mean, I've cleaned them once or twice, but they were kind of like that already, and they had a bit of corrosion, so we'll deal with that. But also this base, once I've inspected the solder points here, just make sure that all those are good, that just needs a little bit of rubbery glue and sticking back in. And it's not just about presentation, this, it really is about just weatherproofing them, really. You know, the corrosion started to eat at the tops of them and the sides of them. There we go. Yeah, so you can start to see that's looking alright. I just think if I'd left that as it was, at some point it would become a bit unreliable. And you know what, when you get oxidised, you know, corroded connections like that, things can die actually. And it looks a heck of a lot better from the top. Yeah, so I've stuck the base back in and just pushed the chip back into position. So just booting up here, let's see if that all works. I've connected the floppy drive to the external connector. There's one thing I'm going to do to that in a minute, I'll show you. And incidentally, I'm using the twist on the end of the cable here to go to the drive. You've got to have the twist. Pin 1 to the left side here. Yeah, I think that's booted up, yeah, it has. But I am expecting the text to go a bit weird here. Yeah, it's done that again, look, duh. It's a weird issue, that. And let's just DIR on A. Yep, that is working. Believe it or not. May or may not load. Yeah, so I think I'll take that Trident card out, get some flux around the main chip there, we'll reflow that, just see if that fixes that video problem once and for all. When I did it before, just heated with hot air on its own is not enough really. The lines you see down there, I just need to press the auto button there and it'll adjust the phase and the clock edges and things so that it just, you know, gets rid of those little stripes. Sweet. These here, they get pushed down consistently. Like if I had £1 for every time I've had to bend that away from there to get the floppy connector on, I would be pretty rich actually. I must have done it 50 times on each one of these. So I'm just going to get the smallest bit of hot melt glue right down in line with the black on this, you know, the black connector, so that it doesn't stop you from getting the cable in, but just in between, you know, that and the capacitor array, because then what will happen is the capacitor array will stop getting pushed blooming forward, and that's what continues to frustrate, and ultimately they'll break off because when you bend, snap. Yeah, I'll let that just cool, and then we'll just try and press these just to see if that helps. I might need a bit more here. That one though, there's a reasonably sized blob of glue there, that means when you press it, it'll have a slight bit of resistance. I'm not sure that's going to focus very well, but the height of it is kind of just around here. So yeah, it'll stop these being rammed in. That's all I wanted really. Oh, after all that, it stopped booting again. It's doing exactly what it did before. Janice library failed to load. It's driving me to despair. It's all making sense now. I see the problem. So I think this is the second card I got up and running. I've removed the base. You can see the rubbery glue there. I'll need to redo that, chip that off and put some more on. I'm just cutting off the little bits of the plastic struts that are remaining in here. There's some instability somewhere here. Occasionally, it's not booting. It's driving me to despair again. And I find if I just press the chip here, often that will solve the problem. So, and there's a few vias. On the other one, I blocked every single via here. Where's it gone now? Yeah, here there's a set sort of pattern of vias here. These aren't blocked. I'm going to block these. One or two of these look a bit fuzzy. And then obviously I'm going to check every one of these solder points as well. There we go, that's 2. And I may need to use, you know, tweezers, or in this case my pliers, just to grab the little piece of plastic that I've just cut off. There we go. And then I can toothbrush around here as well, because it isn't the best. This one, we cut the base out and I checked connectivity initially, but you can see it looks pretty awful in there. But yeah, I did not fit these. You know, this was done by the chap that works on these previously, and yeah, whilst I say he did a good job, there are a few things, you know, a few things that aren't quite right here, and I'm not suggesting I would get everything right first time on anything I ever do. I always make lots of mistakes, and it's an easy thing in hindsight, isn't it? You know, he hadn't finished actually trying to fix these, had he suggested what he thought the issues were, customs and stuff, which isn't the issue. Had he had more time to finish this, maybe this would have been a bit better. But you know what, the thing is, these sockets were mounted, weren't they, you know, with hot air, so you wouldn't be able to easily reflow any of these things without cutting the base out. So I think these were kind of like final state the way they were, and as you'll see on magnification, they don't look great. And that's no disrespect to him, it's the choice of surface mounting it with hot air when there's so much damage around there with fixed wires and everything. So I suspect one or two of these things are going to need reflowing. I think this is the issue. I mean, I'll show you, there's one or two pins that are at crazy angles. There's one here that's like bent to the side. Right, there you go on macro. Yeah, so you can see, yeah, they're not bad. There's some fixes and things there that look alright. But there's just the odd connection, you know, I can't even get my finger into shot, like up here at the top right of my nail. You know, the top edge of, right up here, one or two of those, yeah, they look like they need reflowing. The via does, and I think maybe it doesn't now actually, now I look at it, I don't know. We've got a pin down there that's kind of like bent to the side a little bit. So yeah, anyway, I will be plugging those vias that aren't plugged though, with a piece of kynar through each side. So they've all been blocked there, to the best of my knowledge. I think that one or two of them were already done, so I've got to assume there's a wire through. But all the ones I've done, I have, you know, put wires through. Right, that'll do. Yeah, I think some of it went around that actually. And this is the blooming problem with the UV solder mask. Yeah, you could say wait till you're done, but I thought I was done, and then obviously we've got this last minute instability issue, which does seem localised to that chip. Anyway, yeah, there we go. So you can see all of the wires are blocked, a few things reflowed, but they look awful, the actual pins where they're joined to the pads in places. Anyway, everything there is good.
This PCB is clean.
Well, amazingly, it actually worked at the end of that little escapade of plugging holes. And yeah, it seems reliable. I booted it a few times, no problems at all. It just worked first time, not an issue. So I think the instabilities with this card have been solved. So just in video RAM test. Yeah, and after all that, it was still a little bit unreliable. And pressing these chips here, it worked alright. So I thought, let's just have a look. Look here. I think I probably noticed that before, but bear in mind someone else has done all the fixes to this, and I think I changed that socket because it was similarly green earlier. So yeah, I'm going to get that socket off next. I can't leave that like that. I'll inspect this one here, and I think that is probably the issue, because if you look at that, can you see? It's pretty green. Right, so probably 3 weeks into these two repairs here. It's driven me nuts working on these, especially this one, because, well, I've got this intermittent issue towards the end. I thought I'd fix these, and then we're getting 0806 on there, and I think that means, looking at the manual that came with the card there, the postcard, it says that it's initialising the chipset, and then it just freezes. Now, I came back to the bodge that someone else had done under here, yeah. I've now got some nail polish over it. I'll just power cycle this again just to make sure we get an 0806, and relocating the camera you can see the 0806, so I'll just power cycle it. Experimenting with hot air can sometimes help when you've got an intermittent fault like this, so I've always assumed the problem is down this end of the board here, yeah, and it isn't. I actually think it's under the bit that somebody else fixed previously and then covered up with a label, you know, to hide it away so that no one else would know there's an issue there. And I think something around there is a bit intermittent still. It could be that because some corrosion got through the wires there, underneath the Commodore, you know, the Moss custom, maybe one or two of the pins there are a bit, I don't know, playing up a little bit. It could be a faulty IC, but I don't think so. So the video is running on length a bit again, and there will be another part. In the final part, hopefully, we get to the source of the problems really quick, I do some upgrades to the card. We finish off the one or two things I didn't get a chance to do in this video. There's a problem with one of the real-time clocks on one of them. It's a quick and easy mod. I talk more about that mod as well, so you can do that mod to your card if you get one of these or something similar. We test a bunch of games and demos and stuff out on it. I think I tested a sound card and stuff on it as well. And both cards came out really, really well. And as I mentioned in annotations through this, Stefan allowed me to buy one of these. So yeah, there's more about that in the next part as well. So very, very pleased. But it did take over 3 weeks to fix these two cards. It was in some ways much harder than Cather's A3000 from hell. If you would like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below. Thanks to everyone that supports the channel. I'll catch you in the next video.